Hello and welcome again. To this webinar on programmatic access to Europe PMC. This is part of the series of webinars called Take a Rest from Manual Searching to Access Data at EMBL-EBI Programmatically. So my name is Diane Araújo, and I'm part of the Europe PMC team, and I'm here today with my colleagues, Francesco, Talo, and Yogomati, who will be answering your questions at the end of this webinar. I'm sorry for the background noise. Since I'm home, you might hear something like right now, the post coming. So I'm sorry for that. So we will start with an overview of the data available via Europe PMC and the tools we offer to access this data. We would then go on to focus specifically on the RESTful web service provided by Europe PMC. We'll go through a couple of examples of where you can use web service to answer your specific scientific questions. We will then move on to the output of the RESTful API, the formats, different result types, and so on. We will discuss some of the common tips and tricks to make your search more efficient. And finally, we will show you where to find related information and how you can get support if you need it. And at the end, we will try to answer any questions you might have. So let's get started with the basics. What is Europe PMC and what can I use it for? Well, Europe PMC, it's an EMBL-EBI resource. It is a biomedical literature repository, and it's freely accessible to researchers all around the world. It provides access to more than 37 million publications, including PubMed and Agricola abstracts, preprints, micro-publications, NHS guidelines, and life science patents. Free full text is available for more than 6 million scientific publications, and 3.2 million of those are open access. Apart from the literature itself, we can also find related information such as reference lists, database cross-reference, and you can also access biological terms and concepts. They have been taxonomized from abstracts and full text open access articles. Those concepts include gene, protein names, accession numbers, gene ontology terms, etc. Finally, you can use Europe PMC to search for academic authors and their publications using an ORCID ID. And all in all, there's a plethora of data you can access via Europe PMC. Before we go on to see which tools are available for you to work with this data, I just want to point out that you will see on several slides a link to the web page with additional information on the topics covered in this webinar. So there are several ways of accessing data hosted by Europe PMC, and you can select the one most fitting to your needs. The table on this slide summarizes data types available for access with different tools. If you need fixed pre-computed data sets, you can download data in bulk via bulk downloads links to analyze it locally on your machine. However, in this webinar, we will focus on programmatic ways of querying the live websites. So for that, you can select either SOAP or RESTful web service. SOAP and REST each have favorable qualities and different you can choose which method you would like to invoke, but we will not focus on the details here. So you are free to explore the benefits of either method on Europe PMC developers page. Note that there are two RESTful APIs, one tailored for accessing publications and one for grant information hosted in the GRIST database that contains data on grants awarded by Europe PMC funders, and you can find more details on the API description page. For the purpose of this webinar, we will focus specifically on the article's RESTful APIs. Now, coming back to the article's RESTful API, let's have a closer look at how it works and how you can integrate it into your own workflow. In general, an API is a set of rules for querying a database. REST queries are in the form of structured URLs. So the response you get to the query depends on how you build your URL. So you can select parameters to define the detail of your query, and the Europe PMC RESTful web service is organized in search modules for different request methods. So depending on the task you have, you can select an appropriate module. We will come back to this in more detail in a short while. So each module has its dedicated syntax and parameters that you can specify. Let's look at an example of how a URL is constructed. So here's a REST query. So there are several components to it encoded in the URL. You can see the data provider, in this case, the EBI, the resource they are querying, namely Europe PMC, the tool that you are using, RESTful web service, the name of the module. In this example, we selected a search module as well as additional parameters, query and sort. This request translates into plain English as search for papers on malaria and sort the results list by time cited in descending order. So you can copy and paste this URL into your browser to see the result. This is a REST interaction even without any programmatic access as such, meaning there is no need for you to write a code or use a specific client. The parameters that you can parse differ from different methods and modules. So here it's a list of the RESTful web service search modules. So we have search, where you search for search publication database, citations, reference, database links, data links, full text XML, and supplementary files, and a lot more. So here it's an overview of the methods available in Europe PMC, and in this slide, it shows you the Swagger that you can find on Europe PMC web service. So this Swagger allows you writing documentation on how to use each API module. So you can use this interface to interactively try to run your queries in a more visual. Let us now illustrate how a RESTful web service can be used for literature research with a couple of simple examples. So let's say that you are interested in finding publications on your topic of interest. In this case, we would like to find publications that focus on COVID-19. So to do so, we will use the search module and construct the URL accordingly by providing our query and any additional parameters we want to specify. So to enter our keyword COVID-19, we will use the query parameter. It can be used for standalone terms or combination of terms. Type search terms separated by space in the URL if you have more than one keyword. If you now paste the resulting URL in your browser, you will get the list of results, even if we are not using a specific client for access. Here's what we would get. You can see the total number of hits for your query. You can see the query itself, COVID-19, and the list of results returning information about the articles that match our query. The RESTful API can be combined with a plethora of programming languages. We provide example clients in Java and Perl and for SOAP and SOAP web service. If, however, you wish to use another client, for example, Python, which is commonly used in bioinformatics, you can do so using the same methods and parameters that we show here for the browser interaction. So let's check one example. So let's see what it looks like. This is an example of querying the Europe PMC database using RESTful web service in Python client. It has some elements that are similar to the web request that we construct. So it used the search module. It has the same query, COVID-19. And if we run this client, we will get the list of results. So it looks like this. Again, it contains similar elements, hit count, our query, and the list of results. Either you are using the browser access or specific client, it brings back the same list of papers, which is what we would expect. So let's look at another example of programmatic access to data in Europe PMC. A popular task is retrieving publications that have cited a particular paper. So if you want to access papers citing your publication of interest, you can do so with Europe PMC web service. Let's say that you are interested in this paper on chemical and genetics of Plasmodium falciparum. So on the citation impact section on Europe PMC, you can see data has been actively cited judging from this citation graph, and you want to retrieve all publications that have referred to this work. In this case, you will use the citations module and construct your URL by providing two compulsory parameters, so source and publication ID. Those parameters are necessary to specify the publication for which you wish to retrieve the citations list. So how do I find those parameters? The source, or SRC, it's a three-letter code for the resource that has provided the data. There are several data resources included in Europe PMC. So MED denominates biomedical citations from PubMed and Medline. PMC is the source for full-text publications. PPR is the source for preprints from various preprint servers. And we also have for biomedical patents, they are provided by European Patent Office. That's encoded as PAT. There are several more sources for abstracts available in Europe PMC. Those include Agricola database for agricultural literature citations and Chinese biological abstracts. They are coded IGR and CBA respectively, and you can also find PAT theses available via SEO service. So a full list of data sources can be found in the web service descriptions on the website or in the web service reference guides. So I provide the link for you on this slide. So if you would like to find the source and publication ID for a specific paper, you can do so either using the web service search module or on the live site using the web search interface of europepmc.org. So we have highlighted the source and ID parameters for you in this slide. As you can see from the source code, this abstract comes from PubMed and Medline database. Note that all the full text articles in Europe PMC come from PubMed Central and must have a corresponding PubMed abstract record. So each full text article therefore has a unique PMC ID and must have a corresponding PubMed ID that's a PM ID. In these cases, the PMC ID and PubMed ID can be used interchangeably to retrieve the same results. So for example, the list of cited articles returning in response to the PMC ID will be the same than the one, the response corresponding to PM ID. Knowing the source and the unique publication ID, we can now go back to our URL, enter the parameter before the module and get the results. As you can see, the result is very similar to our previous example. So we again see the total number of hits, the request we provided, which in this case is a specific publication defined by the ID and the source, and the resulting list of papers that have cited this record. Now that we have seen a couple of examples of RESTful requests, let's talk more about the outputs of this service and how you can tailor to your needs. So first and foremost, you can choose the format in which your results are provided. XML is the default option. If you do not specify the format parameter, your results will be in XML. XML, it's the format most commonly used for archiving. So if you need to import results into another database, this is probably the right format for you. XML provides two advantages as a data representation language. It is text-based and position independent. But unfortunately, XML it's not well suited to data interchange, and it does not match the data model of most programming languages. The disadvantages of XML are compensated by the benefits of interoperability and openness. But if you are planning to import the data into a web application, you might want to recall a JSON response. If you are using this search module, so there is one more format available to you, and that's Dublin Core format. The Dublin Core schema is a small set of metadata terms used to describe web resource as well as physical resource such as books and CDs and objects like artworks. So the Dublin Core may be expressed in plain text, HTML, XML, and RDF. Another important parameter that defines what type of data you receive is the result type parameter. The result type can either be light, core, or ID list, with light being the default option. Light returns key metadata for the given search. It contains publication ID, source, the DOI, title, a list of authors, journal information, citation count, etc. Core returns full metadata for a given publication, including abstract, text, full text, links, detailed author information like affiliations, keywords, fund information, and more. And finally, ID list returns only list of IDs and source for a given publication for the given search you did. So if you only want a list of publications associated with your query, this is the most minimalistic result type. So note that this parameter determines the fields returned by XML and JSON formats. So, but it has no effect on the Dublin Core format. When you retrieve the list of results, they are arranged in pages with several results displayed on the page. To navigate between pages, use the cursor mark. Its function is similar to a bookmark. So the cursor mark specifies the results page that comes after the one that you are currently viewing. So the first page appears as default. So to recall the next page, just copy and paste the next cursor mark parameter found at the top of your result list for a specific query. With this, it's important to keep in mind that there is another parameter that specifies the number of articles retrieved for each page. So it is page size parameter. The default value is 25. If you wish to go for more, you should remember that the maximum number of results per page is 1,000. One more important thing to keep in mind is that you can sort your results depending on your needs. The default sorting for the web service output is by relevance, with the most relevant results appearing first. However, you can also sort your search results by specifying the sort field. So you can choose to sort by publication date, for example, to see the most recent publications, by citation count to retrieve the most cited works, or by the first author's name, in case you are interested to see which researchers have published on a particular topic. And after specifying the sort field, you also need to pick ascending or descending sort order. Therefore, you can combine these different parameters for the search module to manipulate the results to suit your task and give you more flexibility. So once again, we come back to the slide with results from our initial query for COVID-19. So you can see here that all of the output parameters, if those that we did not specify and were set to default, are shown here just below your query. So the result type, the cursor mark, the page size, and the sort order. If you look closely, there is one more parameter mentioned here. That is the synonym, and I would like to focus on it in more detail in the next session. So we would just like to spend a couple of minutes on some tips and suggestions that we think can help you when conducting a literature search. So for instance, we can refine our search to get an exact match of for the combination of keywords we used. To do so, we need to enclose our query in quotation marks. So this will eliminate any entries that only mention one of the search terms for our results. It makes our search more stringent, but also more precise. For example, here, when we search for antimalarial compound, we will only get results that have both words separated by space in the same sentence. If the paper mentions only antimalarial, for example, in the method sections and compound in the introduction, it will not be included in your search results. If on the other hand, we would like to conduct a more broad search, we can expand our query by including synonyms using mesh terms, and you can add you can add this parameter on your URL, on your or even using the Swagger. So you can just use the true, yes or false to select if you want to add synonyms or not. Oh, sorry, I just passed to. I'm sorry, I'm just not able to go back on this slide. Oh, here, sorry. So the synonym search is off by default. So you can change that by setting up the parameters true or yes. In your search scenario, for example, if you mention, for example, aspirin, you will get as well salicylic acid as a synonym. So if you would like to restrict your search to specific fields, for example, to search only in paper abstracts, you can use the field parameter. As you are entering your query, type the field parameter, and in this case, abstract followed by a colon and presenting the keyword. And if your query consists of multiple keywords, for example, let's say malaria treatment or malaria plasmodium, so you will need to enclose them in double quotes to specify all keywords that should be searched against this abstract field. So for more available search fields, refer to the Web Service Reference Guide. I provide a link here to download the PDF. So you can also use the fields module to see of the API to see all full list of index search fields along with the data sets and they can be used for. As you can see, there are further parameters that you can specify to fine-tune the results to your specific needs. We encourage you to explore them by following the link at the bottom of this slide. So here I will show you an example using an Europe PMC package to make a search using these like fields. So here it's a search for preprints. So you see a source, it's PPR for preprints. And then we search fields title for COVID-19 or title SARS-CoV-2 or the field abstract with the same search term. And then we extract the first date, the first publication date, and extract the preprint repository. And here you can see the list, that list of results was used to get the distribution graph of COVID-19 preprints over time. So that's only one example for what you can use Europe PMC API and how you can use fields to tune your search. So another point to cover here is the author search. Sometimes rather than searching for topic, you might want to focus on the work of a particular researcher. So to find an author by name, use the author field. So you can use both surname and first name or initials for your search. To find most cited or most recent papers from this author, you can use the sort function mentioned earlier. Authors with common names can be difficult to distinguish. So to match the author exactly, you can use the ORCID, which we have mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. So the ORCID is a unique digital research identifiers that help to disambiguate the scientific authors. So for authors with an ORCID record, you can use their ID instead of the name to search for publications. To find the ORCID of an author, you can search Europe PMC for the researcher name to get suggestions of authors with an ORCID, or you can also search for the researcher by the name on the orcid.org website. To construct the URL, use the search module with an author ID field and type in the ORCID. So to find papers with an associated ORCID type, type the word ORCID and author ID type field. This will bring the list of papers that have been claimed by at least one author with an ORCID record. On Europe PMC, you can also see the list of authors with ORCIDs who have claimed the article of interest under the author's information on the article page. So with this, we are coming closer to the end of this webinar. We have covered only a fraction of what you can do using Europe PMC APIs. So for more information, you can explore related resources that we provide on the website. There's a detailed information about the Europe PMC RESTful web service to be found on the under the europemc.org RESTful web service. Finally, there's also a detailed developer-friendly web service guide, which lists the modular methods available together with their parameters and response. I have provided the link to it in multiple slides. If you would like to keep up with news and release for Europe PMC web service, we encourage you to sign up for our Google group, where you can get info and ask questions about the web service. You can also leave your email address as a point of contact in the email parameter of the response modules. You can check Europe PMC Tech blog to get to know the latest news on programmatic search, and check how Europe PMC can be used by checking our use case page on Europe PMC website. However, if you do not find the answers of your questions on the website and you are stuck in any ways, we have an active help and support team. So the best way to contact us is through the Google group I mentioned. For any questions related to Europe PMC, not only developer-related questions, you can contact the help desk at europemc.org. On this note, let's see if we have any questions right now.
Yes, there are. So first of all, welcome. So my name is Francesco, as Daiani said in the beginning. I'm one of the developers of the Europe PMC platform. So just reading the question, the first one is about from Batul. What is the best way to collect all the figures in open source paper for a particular topic? Using, I mean, I guess Batul, you meant Europe PMC API and not PubMed API. They are two different services, let's say. But so on our side, currently we don't expose a direct, an API that you can fetch directly image for a specific article. So you will need to do a little bit of work. There is a workflow to follow, let's say, to gather those images. And one example, so what you can do, you can make one of the query that Daiani showed before in the training. So for example, making a query to get all the articles that refer the word meningitis. Once you get back all the metadata for all the articles that have it, so you can actually, you need to filter also. So for example, I will write in the chat a typical query that you can do. It's like, in this case, could be meningitis and in PMC Y. So this is a query to retrieve basically all the article having an open access full text in Europe PMC that refer the specific topic. So you do something like this. You will get, all the PMC ID all the articles related to this. And then what you can do is going through the FTP bulk upload, because we offer a section where we upload all the images and supplementary files for open access articles. So you can go, once you get the ID, you can go in this folder and find the relevant subfolder for this for the PMC ID that you are interested in, and there you would find the articles, the images, and the supplementary file.
Thank you for the presentation, Danny. So I'm going to answer the second question. My name is Yogmati, and I'm a developer on the Europe PMC project. So the question is from Anand. So he was asking whether there is any limit to the number of queries that can be made through a script. So at the moment, we have a throttling mechanism. So this limits the number of queries to 10 per second or 500 per minute.
It will be if you exceed these limits as a user, the request will be put in a queue, in order that the number of the frequency of the request that you made from your client is actually the one that Kusum told us.